Welcome back to Salam Media. We're going to throw our eyes now to our neighbors in Mozambique, where around 100,000 people have been displaced due to renewed violence in that part of the world. And speaking to us now, joining us from Maputo, is Director of the Center of Democracy and Development, Professor Adriano Nuvunga. Professor, bom dia, como va?
Bon dia. Very well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. A very, very difficult time in Mozambique right now, I can imagine. If you can, just paint a picture for us about what's currently happening at the Cabo Delgado province, and how is it looking right now? And if you can summarize, we know that the violence started, well, is 2 years ago now. If you could just, give our listeners and viewers just insight on what's currently happening and why it's happening.
Thank you very much. Well, just yesterday, violent extremists attacked Metuj district, which is nearly 25 minutes drive from Pemba, which is the capital city of the Cabo Delgado province. This province is home for Mozambique's 100 and plus TCF of natural gas, is home for transition minerals like graphite, is home for the world's biggest reserves of rubies. The most precious rubies are in this province, yet is Mozambique's poorest province. So for almost 6 years now, there has been a faceless insurgency. It's violence that is disrupting livelihoods, is killing people, is creating Mozambique's biggest humanitarian crisis since the end of the civil war in 1992, and is stopping Mozambique and the region from benefiting of Mozambique's wealth. Now, the peak of the violence was 2001 when they attacked Palma and they resulted in the declaration of the force majeure by Total halting the operations. Then international forces came. Our own SADC sent a deployment under the name of Samim to help Mozambique. And from East Africa, Rwanda also sent a deployment. These two international deployments helped Mozambique to stabilize the situation, mainly towards the northern part of Cabo Delgado, where the gas developments are to take place. Rwanda was patrolling east, in fact, patrolling the Palma area, and Samim is patrolling the central part of the country. There has been, I would say, stabilization. That the situation has been fairly stable. But as of beginning of this year, Samim has started to withdraw from the areas it was patrolling. So what we see now is the insurgents who were not repelled. The situation was stable, but not enough to really do away with the insurgency. They are regrouping in small groups in a guerrilla format. They are coming back to take some of those areas where Samim was patrolling. And the Mozambique Defense Force, although it has registered some improvements, but not enough to secure the control of those territories. So the insurgencies are coming back to take over those areas, creating havoc, abducting children, and they seem to be looking for food. But the reality is that it's a huge threat, resulting in another wave of humanitarian crisis, in addition to the already difficult situation of humanitarian situation. Now they seem to be moving to the south, towards Nampula. Yesterday I mentioned they attacked Metuj, which is close to Pemba. So we see a resurgence or a new momentum of violent extremists, and the situation is not good.
You know, when you speak of Cabo Delgado, it almost feels like you're speaking of a different country. You know, knowing Mozambique, it's a relatively stable country, you know, relatively peaceful. But when it comes to Cabo Delgado, it's almost feels like it's treated in silos to the rest of the country. Why is this? And considering that, as you mentioned, they're starting to move to the south and might be a threat not only to the rest of Mozambique, but to the region of SADC itself.
You are absolutely right. And hence, let me start from the last point. Hence, our call for the SADC leaders to say it is not a good idea for SADC to withdraw from Cabo Delgado. If Samim is withdrawing, then there has to be an immediate replacement force because, as you have rightly indicated, the threat of the violent extremists is not only about expanding to other parts, as they are doing now, they're expanding to Nampula, but this is going to be a threat for the region from where they can launch attacks to the capitals of other SADC countries. So there is an urgent need. I heard the President Mnangagwa yesterday, the day before yesterday, saying that a new deployment is being considered. This is urgent. This should have been done long time ago. Now, Cabo Delgado, as I've indicated, is Mozambique's richest province, yet is Mozambique's most neglected province. The elites of Frelimo, they treat Cabo Delgado as a cow from where they milk. They are not addressing the root causes of this problem. There has been marginalization. The young people have no faith in the future. Mechanisms for youth to participate and benefit of the resources are not there, are not clear. And also remember, this region has for decades been controlled by some form of illicit economy underpinning these developments. And this was happening under the watch of the government, including under the watch of the Mozambique Defense Forces. And let me expand a bit on the Mozambique Defense Forces. You cannot protect your country, your independence, your sovereignty with a starving army. Soldiers have to eat, have to have a breakfast, have to have lunch, have to have dinner. They need to have a proper equipment, helmets, and everything. And they have to be paid their salary to feed their families. This is not happening. It is corruption that is stopping Mozambique from having a highly moralized, highly equipped army of Mozambican young girls and boys ready to protect our sovereignty, our people, and our resources.
You know, you touched a bit about the government. From what they're saying, obviously they need to respond in some way. Do you get a sense of urgency? Do you get a sense that they know and understand just how critical the situation is? Do you get a sense that they're looking into neighboring countries and the region structure, SADC, which, as you mentioned, seems to also be failing? Do you get that sense of urgency that they feel a need that we need to deal with this before it gets out of control?
Governance matters. Good governance matters. Security sector governance matters. That is still to be seen in the case of Mozambique. When it became obvious that Mozambique needed an international support, we immediately advocated for SADC. But we have the feeling that SADC was not well appreciated by our government here. They preferred to bring the Rwandese from East Africa.
East Africa.
And this dynamic did not really play out very well to the extent that SADC is leaving. I mean, can you imagine SADC to leave Mozambique? South Africa is leaving Mozambique alone, knowing that Mozambique borders South Africa. This is not a responsible policy. But from Maputo, from our top leadership, there hasn't been appropriate appreciation of the SADC deployment. And this created certain annoyance from Gabron, the secretariat of SADC, to the point that of saying we are leaving. And Mozambique is being left alone. So governance is to be set right in order to have a coherent strategy to respond. Now, going back to Cabo Delgado, the government has put in place, this was the right policy, put in place an institution aimed at addressing the root causes of the problem. Jobs for the youth, neglect, marginalization, and bring the triple nexus perspective. That institution is called ADIN. But that institution today is a white elephant. And right at the beginning, we said the institutional setup of this new good organization, it was not right. They wanted to capture the resources for this institution. Therefore, the international community did not cough up the $2 billion that government was asking. So again, it is it's corrupt governance that is playing out in manifold ways here and is hampering the country from appropriately benefiting of the goodwill of the international community to come and support.
And just lastly, before I let you go, Professor, looking ahead, what are some of the key factors that could lead to sustainable peace in Cabo Delgado? You are in conflict resolution yourself. Standard before it becomes an outspill, and as the concern that we continuously raise, that it might be an outspill to the rest of the region and a relatively stable Maputo itself.
The Cabo Delgado risk to have an entrenched conflict. If the international oil companies, they decided to resume activities without controlling the insurgency, we risk to see a two Cabo Delgado. One Cabo Delgado highly protected by the Rwandese, where the LNG activities are happening, and the rest of the province, which is left on its own without protection, which is already a manifestation of a failed governance, which is a resource scarce, which will further harm the province and the country. Because as we see now, violent extremists, they are splitting small groups in a guerrilla type of activity. This will be something that, if not appropriately addressed now, it will become a major problem, not only for Cabo Delgado, for Mozambique, and for the region.
I think we're going to leave it there, Professor. I'm pretty sure as the situation continues, Titan will be catching up with you. But for now, we're going to let you go. Obrigado.
Obrigado, Marina. Obrigado.
There we go. We're going to leave it there. Director of the Center of Democracy and Development, Professor Adriano Nuvunga. They're painting a very bleak picture, but making us understand and giving us in-depth, information about what's currently happening in the province of Cabo Delgado. A very, very serious situation that's happening there that I think even us as South Africans, we need to be concerned, understanding and knowing just how close we are with Mozambique, not only by proximity, but also by culture and language, and just an exchange of people through the borders. Who knows? Some of the militia might make their way to South Africa because of the close proximity that we have with them. So a very, very, very concerning situation there happening in the beautiful Mozambique. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be shifting our focus back to Gaza, where the South African government has again initiated a process to have measures taken against Israeli forces that are currently enforcing a genocide in Palestine. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll give you all this and more after this.